I think we can officially start. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's career exploration session. Oh, I see people are still joining in. Okay. So while everyone's just settling in, um, well, how about a quick little icebreaker that we have right here? Now, you can raise your hand if and unmute yourself if that's what you're comfortable with. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how clear are you on your direction after graduation? So 1 here means not clear at all. I don't know what I'm doing. And 10 is super clear. I know exactly where I want to see myself in like the next decade or so. You can pop it in the chat if that's what you prefer, or as I said, you can unmute yourself as well. I see a lot of 6, oh, 9, 7, 8. Oh, that's great. Some 6s, 7. Amazing. Alrighty. Perfect. So we are here to help you in the process and figure it out just a little more. All right, so my name is Ananya. I am the Career Exploration Officer here of Access and Inclusion here at the Lakehead University Thunder Bay campus. I am also joined by Brooke, who is our team member from Aurelia. And just to let you guys know, this event is part of a larger career exploration series. So we still have one more workshop coming in next week. If you like this particular one, please feel free to register for the next one. And we also have workplace tours coming up, both in Aurelia and Thunder Bay, for which you can also register on the My Success portal. We also have the Career Exploration Toolkit, which is just a resource that can help you map out your options and explore labor market trends. And both the recording of this workshop as well as the Career Exploration Toolkit will be emailed to all our participants for today. All right, today we're focusing on your future in finance, and we are joined by two lovely professionals who will each just take a few minutes to share their insights into the organization that they're a part of, which is BMO, as well as their own career paths. So today we are joined by Cleo Sriram, who is the head of Indigenous Banking at BMO, as well as Carol Nember, who is the campus recruiter for BMO. Please correct me if I did not pronounce that right.
Nope, it's perfect.
Perfect. All right. So they'll just take some time to introduce their company and their career path, and then we'll open the floor for questions. And if, while the presentations are going on, there are a few questions or thoughts that you have in between, feel free to leave them in the chat and we will get to them in the end. All righty. And now over to my screen just paused. All right, over to Carol and Cleo. Please take it away.
Carol, did you want to get started first?
Certainly. I'm fine with that, Cleo. Thank you. And welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for being part of today's virtual session. I'm really excited to join you all today as part of BMO's campus recruitment team. And so a little bit about myself. So I have actually been with Bank of Montreal now and I don't like to say the year because it ages me, but I have actually started, well, I can tell you the year. It was August of 1994 when I first started off as a co-op type of a role, finishing up school. And I started off as a customer service representative. And once I was finished my co-op role, I was offered a full-time customer service role. And over the years, I wasn't sure, like a lot of you, according to the poll, exactly what I wanted to do, but I had an idea that I wanted to maybe do HR, maybe people management. And so through the years, and let me tell you, many different, in a lot of cases, entry type level roles, I eventually did get to management role in our Virtual Connect environment, which is our call center side of Bank of Montreal. And I people managed and also had my hand up in the HR field as well. So whenever anyone was looking for help with fireside chats or little presentations on the business, interviews, I always made sure that I was putting my hand up. And so, yeah, I really developed a love for recruitment, and especially campus. It's really near and dear because I remember when I was that student, not quite sure what I wanted to do, but BMO gave me that great opportunity to just grow and network and get to, what I love to do. And I've been with campus recruitment now for about going on 4 years, and I love it. I love meeting all of you students, having the opportunity to come and tell a little bit about my story, and happy to answer any questions that you may have about future careers. So thank you so much for having me today. Over to you, Cleo.
That was great, Carol. Love hearing other people's backgrounds all the time. So hi, everybody. My name is Cleo. I head up Indigenous Banking at BMO, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that a little bit later. But I'm a mom of two, and they're 4 and 1.5. So it's very crazy here sometimes. My community is Fond du Lac First Nation. So this is as far north in Saskatchewan as you can possibly go. I was born in Saskatoon, mostly grew up out west though, like Burnaby, Vancouver. But now I live and work in Toronto, which I'm very grateful for. Big city. A lot of people really have no interest in living in Toronto, and I don't blame them. But I've really enjoyed it. I really like it here. My background, I thought I might go even further back a little bit. I went to high school in Burnaby, and I really liked math and science, but I was a total band geek. That was what I was really obsessed with. So I would say I was like relatively average smart, but I wasn't, the best at necessarily, getting my homework done properly or, doing all the things that you're really supposed to be good at as a student. That was not necessarily me. I was very good at playing the trumpet, and doing things that just like took understanding. So I could do math because it was like, here's an equation and then you answer it and you figure it out. All that to say, I didn't have the worst grades, but I did not have the best grades. But I decided to go into music. So I got a bachelor's of music in trumpet performance. I started off at UBC in Vancouver, and then I transferred to Brandon University in Manitoba for a very good trumpet teacher. When I was finished my degree and it was clear I was not going to be playing orchestra long term, I started studying math at Simon Fraser University, eventually switched into business. I did a graduate diploma. And then I worked in a call center as well. So I worked in an arts marketing, which is a call center for arts organizations. And this was to get, I'll call it management experience because I had no idea. I wanted to get into an MBA program. You needed to have experience as a manager. I had no idea how to do that. And I found this job that was titled manager. And I eventually became a call center manager. And this allowed me to do my MBA at SFU, thinking I would eventually someday work for the symphony and like support the arts, through their, administration office. But I really enjoyed the econ courses, the corporate finance courses, also marketing. But that led me down this path of exploring this world called like investment banking and sales and trading. And I was like, ooh, this is fancy and nice. And then I got pulled into that world and I started exploring it. So I tried really hard to get a job in mostly investment banking, but a little bit of sales or training in Toronto, but from Vancouver with really a undergrad in music and a new MBA. I did this just literally by calling any phone number on a website for a bank that I could. And I eventually made contact with BMO. I did interview with banks to do those like big fancy jobs, but I did not ace those interviews. They were pretty tough interviews. And so, but I did meet with like the commercial banking team. So I found a phone number, Carol, on the website. It was literally to like BMO HR. And then Jane, gosh darn it, I'm forgetting her name now. Jane, I always say Goodall, and that's the woman who worked with like apes. It's the wrong name. Anyways, this woman still at BMO. So this would have been 25 years ago. She called me back and she, introduced me, I think, to like maybe one or two people in Toronto in commercial banking, which led to like many more conversations. We'll call them information interviews. And I just found when I was talking to BMO, everybody I had spoken to was like, I've worked here for 15 years. I've worked here for 30 years. And I started thinking that long tenure is very encouraging for an organization because it really suggested to me that people were happy with the organization enough to stay that long. And I did meet some other banks, and some other banks did have that, but not all of the banks had that experience, I will say. And so I met with like lots of different folks. I really want to emphasize that I think informational interviews are really, really critical because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Investment banking, sales and trading, that's all I had read about. And I was not aware of like all the other areas of the bank, and I found it very confusing. So these info interviews are like pressure-free situations to ask people, like, what is it that you do? What does this area do? How come that sounds the same as this other area or this other bank? And in an info interview, like you're kind of being interviewed a tiny bit at the same time, but it is mostly just a stress-free opportunity for you to ask questions and be like really honest and truthful. So I really think coffee chats, information interviews, I really support those. And I remember I would come to Toronto for like 4 days. I didn't have very much money, so it was very hard for me to get a flight to Toronto from Vancouver. But I would come for a few days and I would have these chats, and I would have like 3 or 4 or 5 meetings set up in a day. And I would actually get headaches because like on all the time. You're just like on. But I think it's like working at the gym. Like you just keep doing it, you get better at it. It's a really crucial, incredible skill. And yeah, I kind of look at it now as like I was doing a lot of like exercise to make me stronger. Because then once you get in the job, there's a lot of that going on, especially if you get into any sort of sales oriented job. You're back to making phone calls, getting in front of people, getting headaches from going to networking events and being on again. So I do think the coffee chats and the info interviews, while they may be kind of hard and a little bit frustrating sometimes to set up or get to, I do really think they're really fantastic. And so all that to say, I started working at BMO back in 2008. And then I eventually went back to school for a Master's of Finance in London Business School in the UK. And then when I finished that off, I came back to Toronto, was fully planning on coming back to BMO, but I'll be honest, TD courted me. And so I did go to TD for a little bit. I have nothing bad to say about TD. I think it's a great organization. They are in the news a little bit right now, but I thought it was a great organization. But I had the opportunity, I was invited back to BMO on my mat leave, and I was so excited. And so now I've been back for 3.5 years, and I do just like, for me, BMO is home. And I think now I would never work at another bank, to be honest, but it's also home, right? So I really don't want to say bad things about other banks. And then just to give you a quick overview, these jobs, I don't know if they will sound familiar or not, but I'll just do it quickly. I started off in commercial banking, mid-market, so lending to medium-sized businesses. And I started as an analyst and moved into a relationship manager. So I had a portfolio of commercial customers. I then moved into Indigenous banking. So I'm half First Nations and I'm half French. So I covered Ontario East, so Ontario to Atlantic, Canada. And this is providing banking to Indigenous governments to finance infrastructure on reserve. So think like roads, buildings, housing, water treatment plants, all on reserve. And then I moved into a group called Corporate Finance. So this is lending to larger companies, typically the largest companies before it moves into capital markets. And more typically, they are private companies, so not listed on a stock exchange, but in some cases, we did have some public companies. And this was like an analyst/associate job. Went off to school in England, came back. I worked at TD in the commercial national accounts, and that is the identical group to corporate finance at BMO. So there's an example of the same group being called two different things. And I was a senior manager. So now I'm like managing the whole portfolio. And that at BMO would be called a director. I tried a stint in financial restructuring. So this is when a company is in financial stress, and our groups try really hard to work with companies when they're in distress to bring them back into the regular commercial bank. There is a point though when sometimes you do have to work with accountants or lawyers to support that company to get out of the hardships that they're in. And then in some cases, you have to fully demand on a loan, which just means that you either another bank will take you out, or the company sells the business and that's what repays your loan. Or never in my experience in 2 years in that group did this happen, but you can liquidate a company and then that's like selling each part of the company to repay back the loan. But honestly, I would say 90% of the companies, we were just working through those tough times and bringing them back until they were back on track. Then Indigenous banking, mat leave, back to BMO. Now I've been head of the IBU for 3.5 years now. And so maybe I could talk about what the IBU is. Sorry, I shouldn't use acronyms. I could talk about what the Indigenous banking unit is at BMO. But again, I feel like I've talked a lot, and so I'll stop there for now. But if anybody is interested, feel free to ask or reach out for an informational interview.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, if anybody has any kind of questions, this would be the time that I'd encourage you to either unmute yourself or leave questions in the chat. Meanwhile, if Carol and Cleo, you have anything else to add regarding, your own career path, it was amazing to hear about it, first of all. But if you have anything else to add, if you want to talk a little bit about, BMO and several roles that are available for students, please go ahead. I see Nicholas has raised his hand. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry, quick question. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm in my car because I'm at work. Is that okay? Cool.
I can hear you.
Yeah, quick question. How important, I guess, is education over experience for some of us that are graduating and maybe didn't get to do many internships that will introduce us to finance roles? Like, if we don't have a lot of experience, should we pursue further education in, Canadian securities course, CFAs, MBAs, or try and get entry-level roles just to get started? Because I feel like sometimes... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say sometimes the entry-level roles are, for example, sales roles where you get started and the first 2 weeks you need to try and sell insurance to your family members, which is not to name companies, but, maybe you guys probably do know that that's a lot of the entry roles that are available and with little to no experience. But that's maybe not the way that not all of us, myself included, want to do. So, yeah. Do we pursue, I guess, more education or just try and get into any position at all in the bank?
I'll let Carol answer first, but I definitely have some thoughts.
Yeah, I as well too, Nicholas. That's a great question. And I'm not sure that there's an exact right answer. So I would definitely say this. I recruit for many different roles, some entry-level roles, a lot of student opportunities like co-op and internships, part-time, new graduate roles. And one of the things that I always look for, first and foremost, aside from the particular certifications or qualifications that that particular role may require, it's it's somebody who has so I love to see the part-time roles. So for example, you've worked at Tim Hortons or your local retail or grocery store. So any of those opportunities, volunteer experiences, extracurriculars, projects that you're proud of, always make sure that you're putting those on your resume. Um, it depends. So I would say that entry-level jobs are a fantastic way, as you said, to get your foot in the door. Some of our entry-level roles, such as the customer service roles, um, just depending on your career path. So if you're not sure what you want to do, but you know that BMO is that company that kind of aligns with some of the values and the culture that fits with your own, I say, apply for all of the jobs that you really are interested in. Um, Education, it depends. I've had students or new graduates apply to roles in their art or legal backgrounds. So, any type of an economic or business background is great too. But, we don't just look at those students. When it comes to certification, so you mentioned your IFIC and your CSC, for example. So again, it kind of comes down to if you're looking for any type of roles that are sales or you're talking to customers about investments, that's definitely not a prerequisite for all jobs within the bank, but it definitely, those types of certifications will definitely really enhance your resume and put you forward for a lot of the roles.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Carol. And when I was doing my MBA, like finishing off my MBA and reaching out to banks, I started the CSC course as also another indicator on my resume that I had a interest in finance and that I was willing to go beyond my degree to, learn more and explore it. So I do think it's worthwhile doing that. But on the flip side, I have a lot of friends who've started the CFA thinking that the CFA is going to get you the next job. And definitely, if you finish all 3 courses and get your CFA certification, like that's pretty impressive. And it definitely sends a huge signal. But I have a lot of friends who started it, spent a lot of time on it and a couple of bucks, and ultimately did not finish it. So I would suggest something like the CFA is something that you pursue after you've started working. But if you're looking to get a job, those intro positions are sometimes I actually think they help you get a job. So if you're working at BMO and you have like an intro position at BMO, or you had some experience in doing that, there's like an automatic connection point. But even if it's at another institution, I think that's okay. It does get you your foot in the door, which I think is great. But I also think that there's a big opportunity to just start having like informational interviews. If you want to work in Thunder Bay, just start like walking to some banks and some other, offices and just start having conversations, or reach out to people on LinkedIn. I literally have people reach out to me on LinkedIn that I don't know. And I don't answer all of them, but I do answer some of them. So I think it's worthwhile. It's when you're talking about doing that sales job and selling to your family, this is almost similar, but you're just selling yourself basically and knocking on doors / sending a message on LinkedIn. And so there's these 2 paths, I think, within to get it within the bank. It's like you have Carol, and that's the HR path, and there will be like programs and systems set up for students, particularly like you. And then there's the other path, which is those informational interviews, which can sometimes even come through HR or just can come directly from making the reach outs. And I think both are very good. And I don't think I did enough of the campus recruitment path because I missed out on some of the intake programs, like there's an associate program for commercial banking where you come in and you go through the different levels of commercial banking. There are rotational programs at the bank. So I think the HR path is a very good path to go on, but also just the cold call and doing that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with intro positions at all, because they're always going to give you a really good experience. And if it's something like selling insurance to your family and you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, just be like truthful to yourself and don't do that job. But I really wish I had worked at a branch, and I really wish I had done a role called the commercial services officer role, because I would have had such a better understanding of just like base transactional banking knowledge that I really needed in my commercial banking career and corporate finance career, that I eventually learned somewhat, but I always wish I had that experience.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to all of you. If there are any more questions, please feel free to raise your hand, leave it in the chat. And while our participants are thinking, I actually have a question for you all. This is a question that we actually get a lot in the career services department. So, the moment you say finance, a lot of students have this idea that they need to have a business background to kind of get into the field. But what is your advice for students, who are not from a business background, who say are from humanities or even sciences? When you work in, a bank, there are so many opportunities that go beyond the traditional like business finance route. So what are some opportunities that you would, suggest that are open for students who are not from this background?
Of getting into finance and your background is not business or finance oriented, the best thing to do in that case is, one, go get, start studying for your CSC or show something on your resume that shows that you have an interest. And then part two is perhaps maybe one of those jobs that are slightly easier to get, that you can, get a taste for what finance means, or banking, or like anything in that world. And then it also is, again, like an indicator flag to the employer that that's something that you're interested in and that you have explored a little bit. And then also just be ready, if you have neither of those, to really be able to sell why you're interested in it so that it makes sense. And maybe some people will enjoy the answer because I really like money, but I don't know if that will always really work in interview setting. And so for me, it's like having some sort of indication on your resume. If I don't get a chance to meet you first, that shows me that you have a background or an interest, would be critical.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And hey, I see there are a few things in the chat. All right, I have a question from Ty. I want to be financial analyst after graduation, but I'm not a finance major myself. My major is actually business analytics and information systems, and minor is finance. What do you think about this combination regarding my career goal?
I think.
Go ahead, Carol.
Well, I was going to say, and as someone who, right now I've got a number of business analyst roles, credit analyst roles, and there's kind of, they kind of blend, right? So, again, I think that, going for a business analyst type of a role can encompass many different lines of business. I think it's a great idea. So while you're in school, is to explore maybe some internships in the different lines of business, just to get a taste of what a business analyst role in different lines of business can be. because again, we have a lot of the same titles within the bank, but the same title can be a different line of business doing completely different things. So I think networking is also very, very important. As Cleo mentioned, those informational, conversations. Use LinkedIn. Use your different platforms at school. These types of sessions to really network and ask questions, and get an idea of what you want to do, and make those connections, because they will always come in handy down the road.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. Like even when I read financial analyst, I was like, oof, what exactly is that? And then I was like, oh yeah, because there's all these different job titles. So there's, I think, a financial analyst in the capital market sense. So they're analyzing, stocks and companies for the capital market side. And then there's a financial analyst who works for the finance department of a bank. So you'll have a bank that's doing all banking stuff, and then you'll have this group that manages our financial statements and our financial reporting. And I would say that's most commonly where I see the title financial analyst. And so if that's what you're thinking, that's great, but I thought I would throw that out there. And then Carol totally nailed it. There is just so many analyst positions in all the different lines of business. But if it's ultimately you're interested in analyzing the financials of a company, whether it be companies that we work with that are customers of ours or our own company, I think your experience is perfectly great. You don't have, I think you said, what does it say here exactly? You don't, oh, I keep losing this. You're not a finance major, but you have a minor in finance. That's fantastic. Just start going for it. And once you start going for it, and if people were like, you know what, we really need you to be a finance major for whatever reason, which I don't think would happen, but if that did, then you learn it. But I think to me, your background looks pretty good.
Thank you. That helps.
Thank you so much, Ty. We have another question from Siddharth in the chat. What is the recruiting timeline for the associate rational program at BMO?
Rotational program? The associate rotational program.
That is correct.
I don't know the answer to this one. Carol, do you?
So the timeline, are you referring to the recruitment process, or the actual role itself? So, I mean, when we're talking about recruitment timelines, generally speaking, for all of our student roles, you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks turnaround time. So from the time that you apply for a role, you upload your resume, your application, to the time that you start to hear back from recruiters and hiring managers, you're looking at about a 4 to 6 week line. The way that it works is that once your resume is uploaded, a recruiter will take a look at it. And from there, potentially you'll be sent what we call a one-way interview. And when you get that invite to your email, that is basically an invite to complete a digital interview, which is the first step in the process. And then once that's done, that's when, those interviews with the hiring manager will most likely take place. And so that really works for all of the roles, whether it's the internships or the part-time student roles, even the new graduate roles.
Perfect. I think that may answer the question, Carol, because I see that Siddharth mentioned in the chat, it is about the recruitment process. So I think you totally nailed that one. I have another question. There are quite a few, actually. I'm so sorry. I think I'll pronounce the last name. It's Huang. Hi, as a master's student, I have overseas work experience, but not in Canada. Will this help for an entry-level job here?
I can start, Cleo. 100%, absolutely. You want to include that on your resume. We take a look at those overseas or international work experiences, definitely. So, I mean, so say you're looking at specifically like a finance role, so a branch type of a role, and you've had, previous work experience at a different international bank. Definitely, it is something that we'd love to see on your resume.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's helpful when we know the company and you can make the comparison more easily and all that jazz. But at the same time, it's like experience is experience. So yeah, definitely worthwhile.
Great. Thank you so much. Another question. Can you briefly explain how to become a CPA?
A CPA is Canadian, no, chartered professional
Accountant?
accountant. Thank you.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm not an accountant. Yeah, I actually don't know the process to be a CPA because clearly I never went after that. But it's like an organization that it's like a separate organization that I'm sure it takes a couple of years to get it, and it involves studying and doing some tests and maybe some work experience. I don't know. But if you're interested in being an accountant or working for an accounting firm in particular, that is a very worthwhile thing to go for. I have a friend who's a CPA, and I have another friend actually who's a CPA, started working at E&Y and then is now working at BMO in corporate finance. So, getting that accounting experience, particularly at one of the accounting firms, is very helpful for transitioning to a job at a bank if that is of interest.
All right, thank you so much. Jay, I do see your hand up. I'll just get through the chat first and then we'll come to you. So there's another question from Siddharth. Does BMO provide financial assistance to its employees for pursuing the CFA?
But again, I don't know of any formal program. When I started exploring it, it was 2008 probably, or 2010, a while ago. And I feel like maybe there was a chance that there was like an informal way of getting some financial support, but not, I don't think there's anything formal at the bank. But Carol, please correct me if you know better.
No, Cleo, no, nothing to correct. I think you're absolutely right. I think, I remember a time many years ago. So, for example, when I complete my IFIC, it was more like a case by case. So you kind of had that relationship with your manager. You'd had those career discussions. So there was a career path in place. And for myself, I was able to get, not the full course reimbursed, but some of it. And that was, not a given, but just based on the previous conversations and career path I had. And so I think it really does come down to there's nothing formal that I'm aware of, but I think it is more on a case by case. So, making sure, and I think that's really important to have those conversations once you get your foot in the door, that you really have those conversations with your manager. And that's the one thing I love about Bank of Montreal too, is the career discussions are something that is a very regular occurrence that everyone is entitled to have, and they do have with your manager, so that you have that career path. So definitely something that you'd want to talk about, with your manager.
All right, thank you so much, Carol and Cleo. Jay, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I just had a quick question because I wanted to dive into the field of finance. So I was just searching up some certifications to do, and there are a lot of them. When I was researching, there are like 20 or 30 of them on the website. So which ones do you recommend for getting an entry-level job like an advisor or so?
Cleo, do you want me
The job. So if it's advisor, like a financial advisor, the
Yes.
CSC, I believe, is just like a requirement. But this goes back to just like talking to the folks that you're interested in doing their jobs. Because if you were to ask Cleo working in commercial banking, I mentioned the CSC because I had a background in music and an MBA, which, should be enough. But I did do the CSC again to signal my interest and my willingness to do something extra. And I don't think the CSC is like extraordinarily expensive. And I don't think it's extraordinarily cumbersome. So I do think the CSC is like kind of nice in between. But I truthfully actually just don't know all of the other things. But something like the CPA is like, and the CFA, like these are pretty intense. They're much more. Not to say don't do them, like definitely do them if you have an interest, but those would be more significant. It really depends on what you're interested in. So if you did a CPA and tried to get a job in commercial banking, it would be okay, but they're not like perfectly aligned. Like the CPA is great for getting a job to be an accountant, and the CFA is actually a pretty good job for commercial banking, but it's more applicable to investment banking and corporate finance. So sorry that it doesn't give you a perfect answer, but I feel like the CSC might be a sweet spot just to like start the conversation, to have it on your resume, but then to also ask the person that you would like to hire you, or the person who has the job that you ultimately like to have one day, what do you think is good to explore for somebody in my position? I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Right, thank you so much, Jay. The next question is from Anjali. With the major in finance, which minor would be better? Business economics or economics?
If we're getting a job in banking, I imagine it's business economics. I guess I actually don't know the difference between the two. Maybe just regular economics is more about the general economy and not so much narrowing down just on the business side. But I would say, based on that guess, I would say business is more applicable to finance. And if the flip side, like which one would it be? What would the regular economics be better for? It would probably be more a job in, I would guess, like the government, or perhaps a banking job where your customers are governments, like the bond issuances for provinces and elsewhere. But I truthfully think if you had to decide between the two, just go for the one that interests you the most, because both would be perfectly acceptable minors, in my opinion. I think.
All right.
You talk to who you want to get hired by.
Thank you so much, Leo. We have the next question from Yang, who has asked, I have acquired CSC certificate in 2024 and an LLQP provincial certificate in 2023, which has just expired. I have foreign work experience in financial services, but I have no experience in Canada. Will the CSC certificate and the expired LLQP help getting an entry-level job at BMO?
Yeah, maybe I'll start off. I thank you for your question. Your CSC will definitely help you with entry-level roles into the bank. I'm just thinking, in the branch side or the personal and business banking side of things, some roles that I hire for routinely are the personal banking associate role. So that's the next step up from the customer service role. And the CSC is a requirement in most of those roles. So to have that is fantastic. Now, if you have, in conjunction, if you had, I think maybe you mentioned you didn't have any Canadian experience, but I mean, again, if you had any type of a retail role, any type of a fast food restaurant role, that in conjunction with your CSC would really jump out to me on your resume.
And if you have any sort of expired designations or letters or certificates, I don't think that's a terrible thing. Like, put it on there, because you might not need it for that next job. And so there's no need to get a refresher, but it shows completed it. And if you get into that interview and they say like, oh, this is expired, do you have any plans of doing it? And you say like, do I need it for this job? And they say yes. You say, well, I absolutely will. I just wanted to make sure before I did it again. But I think it's worthwhile putting it on there. I think it's always good to show that you've done 2 extra certifications outside of school. And even if you don't have Canadian work experience, but something that's applicable, like working at a bank in another country or anything else, I think that's very worthwhile putting on there for sure.
Thank you, Carol and Theo. I have one more question in the chat, and then after this, depending on the time left, we may be able to take another question if someone wants to add it in the chat right now. So the next question is from Molly. I was working in operations in the financial service industry in Toronto, and I'm looking for switching my career in risk management. Do you think I need to prioritize on passing the 2 FRM exams or look for a more entry-level position in the risk management field first?
That's a great question.
Very specific question, and I appreciate the specificness of it. I feel like you don't have to have complete passing before you can start like exploring getting hired. I have to be honest, I don't know if the FRM exams are something that are in the university or outside. I'm guessing outside, in which case I always think there's an opportunity, most likely, that you can finish it after you've started the job. But that's where the interview with somebody who works in risk management. And I should note, and you probably know this because you've already worked in operations and finance, but there's risk management for the entire bank. So looking at like all the risk factors in all of different ways. And then there's like risk management. So I work in the world of commercial banking. There is a risk management team that looks at the overarching risk considerations and assessments for commercial banking in our world. And they assist with like policies, and it's more of an overarching aspect within commercial banking alone. And then within that, there's also each transaction that we try to get approved. So if we're lending money to ABC company, there'll be the lending side, like the team that's, the sales side, we'll call it. So they're the one who manage the portfolio of customers. They're the ones like the customer says, hey, I need $10 million to buy a new piece of equipment. We do write up the deal. So like our analyst is writing up the deal, the relationship manager is managing that. And then we're bringing that deal to our credit risk department. And our credit risk department is the one who's like reading it over and making sure like the bank's assets are still being protected in this one single transaction. So all that to say, when you want to work for a risk team, I think you know what you're talking about. I thought I'd share that because maybe not everybody knows all the different risk positions. And I don't think that you need an FRM for those like commercial credit, commercial banking type roles, but I could be wrong. But I think it really depends on the group or the exact area that you want to work in. And it would be really good to chat with somebody in that world.
Thank you so much, Cleo. So this would be the final call. If anyone has any other quick question, I would highly encourage you to put it in the chat right now, or feel free to unmute yourself as well. I'm just gonna wait a quick minute and then.
One thing while we're waiting to see if anyone has any questions, and great questions. Thank you for asking such great questions. I'm going to put into the chat as well to get the link. We have what we call a student hub or a student landing page. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the site that we have at BMO for students and new graduates alike. But this landing page will take you directly to our campus site, and all things student related will be there. A great wealth of knowledge. We also host monthly, our campus recruiters, we take part in workshops. So I think it's 4 that we host monthly. One is on resumes, one is on interviews, one is a business etiquette workshop, and then the other one that we host is called a Recruiter Ask Me Anything session. And all fantastic ways to network. We take attendance, and we have had my colleague, my most recent campus recruiter colleague, was hired as a student who attended many of these events and put up her hand and really, had herself noticed that way. So yeah, we host them monthly, all 4 of these workshops. They are free and they're virtual. So I'm going to get the link and I'll put it in the chat. It's a really good wealth of knowledge. So hopefully that'll help too. If you think of questions or, there's an email on there, our campus recruitment email, that if you have questions in terms of, specific roles, you can just send us an email as well. So hopefully that might help.
Thank you so much, Carol. And I don't
Yeah.
think we have any other questions. Something just popped into the chat. Okay, I have the final question, which is from Ty again. What would be the most valuable career advice you would give us in our 20s, derived from your experience and lessons you've learned throughout your career? I know this question is kind of generic, but I would love to hear it.
Yeah, Cleo, if it's okay, I'll start because one comes immediately to mind. If I could tell my younger son anything, and I think it's what Cleo has been really emphasizing on as well, it's network. I wished that when I was a student or just finishing up school that I had networked. It really is, it's so helpful. I'll share something really quick. I started networking, later on, probably halfway through my career. And networking actually how I got this particular job. Well, I want to say it helped. I was a manager at our call center side of the organization. And sometimes we think, well, we're already in the company or we're already this position or that position. So, when I apply for whatever role it is I want next, I should have no problem getting it, right? But, as a manager, I kind of went into the search of being in the recruitment side, that mindset, which was wrong, because there's other people in the field or that line of business who are also waiting for roles to come up. So my senior leadership team actually, because I was working hard at the current job I had, doing well, they really invested their time and energy to helping me kind of branch out. And Ian, at the time, he put me in touch with a campus recruiter who was out of Chicago. We developed a networking coffee chat relationship over about a year and a half. And it was actually her who brought the role to my attention. I applied for it. I went through the full recruitment, right down to the digital interview. But again, I think if it wasn't for the networking and really letting, my managers and my team around me know what I wanted to do, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. So yeah, network. LinkedIn, I love to have those LinkedIn conversations. And I schedule many coffee chats through LinkedIn. So
I would say the same thing. And networking sometimes has a bad, aura around it. Like folks feel like you're going networking and it's just like a bunch of fakeness and like what do you say to somebody you don't know? And networking really, I would just say, is like connecting with people. So if you're doing it through LinkedIn, if you're doing it through this, if you're doing it through Career Center, if your best friend got a job somewhere and you ask like, can I talk to you or one other person that you work with, or your friend's parents work somewhere and you ask them for like one introduction, or you're at a networking event and you're really, really nervous and you're like, what the heck do I say to somebody? Those situations my like hack is I just, usually try to look for other people that look uncomfortable, and I feel like I'm just doing them a favor, like I'm helping them by coming over and saying hi. But all that to say, like, it's just getting used to talking to people face to face, having that conversation. I know it's uncomfortable, but it's just practice, practice, practice. Eventually it gets easier. And like Carol says, this is how she got her job. I truthfully, at this point, I don't think I have gotten any job without like applying directly online. Now that's just my personal career story. But like I said, like my first reach outs were I found phone numbers on websites and started calling them and left voicemails. And that always just led to like one person who maybe would lead to another, and eventually that would go somewhere. And like every job has honestly been through having a few conversations. Doesn't mean you're going to get them all, but it just starts the connection points with people. But still apply online, to be very clear, because I also did a lot of that. And I think today might be a little bit different than when I was getting started too. And sorry, one last thing is like, don't hold yourself back. Like, I know it's not maybe great to say like, you can do anything, aim for whatever. And maybe that is great to say, I don't know. But don't limit yourself in thinking like, I've only got XYZ, so I'm just going to stay here. I mean, try to do the other stuff because you don't know where that's going to lead. And if it is staying right here, that's also a great place to start. But I wouldn't, don't negotiate with yourself down, as they say. Just start and see what happens.
Thank you so much, Carol and Cleo. On that note, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been such an insightful and interactive discussion. I think it really helped the students. I know that I learned a lot as a new professional myself, and I'm so happy that you took the time out to talk to our students. And Cleo has already generously offered to connect on LinkedIn as well, and I'm sure that Carol will be there too. So thank you so much to the both of you for joining us. To all our participants, thank you so much for your questions. It really fueled to the discussion, and I think you helped your companions as well, which is great. Just before we leave, just a reminder that this is part of our career exploration series, and we still have one more workshop, Creative Careers Explored, coming in next week. So I would encourage you to register for that. And we also have workplace tours happening both in Aurelia as well as Thunder Bay, for which you can also register on the My Success portal. As I've already mentioned, we have the Career Exploration Toolkit as well, which is a great resource to have to kind of map out your future options. And both the toolkit as well as the recording of this fantastic workshop will be emailed to all our participants for the day. And I think that's all she wrote. So thank you so much once again to everyone who has joined us. Until next time.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carol and Cleo. See you. Bye, everyone. Take care.